Good afternoon. Yeah, so the shock of the new. I remember, I'm old enough to remember, I'm definitely older than everyone in this room. I can remember in 1975, Kraftwerk appeared in a program called Tomorrow's World, a program that dealt with the future. It was the first time I'd ever seen a musical outfit on a science program, and they looked like the future. They looked like 40 years into the future. They did a song called Autobahn, 4 people stood behind keyboards playing in a robotic manner. They pretended to be robots, and they had this concept of that in the future they would tour just as robots, which they never did, which I thought was a fantastic idea. And it's like, at that time, pop culture itself was fast-forward into the future. Pop culture has also always been a window for the future, but it's also a place where you can get bogged down in the past. What seemed really futuristic once now has become antique. These days, there's like a real fetishic love of vinyl, which is odd. At one time, vinyl would have been the cutting edge of technology. The 45 RPM single, which punctuated the 1960s. Every 6 weeks or every 2 months, the Beatles singles would be like a comma or a full stop in the fast forward of that decade. Nowadays, those vinyl singles have become collector's pieces. Teenagers now buy vinyl like buying into a mythical past where music apparently meant more than it does now. It's like a fear of the future. The vinyl's now become like the grandfather clock of our times, like an antique, which I find strange because I like the idea of pop culture still going fast forward. Like that moment in 1975 when I was like a teenager watching Top of the Pops or watching Tomorrow's World when Kraftwerk appeared there with their reptilian like robotic appearance. That was a future I was like really obsessed by. At that time, pop culture was like in love with the future. There'd been David Bowie, who looked like he beamed from 20 years into the future, into the middle of the 1970s. There'd been Pink Floyd like 10 years earlier, or Hawkwind doing space rock. It was all about the fast forward. There's still a fast forward now, but there's also like a drag back, an anchor into the past. But pop culture has always been like a very interesting reflection of like technology. So where does technology fit into pop culture now? Pop culture itself is trying to grapple with technology. It changes the way we make music. It changes the way we listen to music. It changes the way we relate to music. So for a lot of people nowadays, listen to music is not like when I was that same teenager, that quest to get a record, to get a piece of music. That time when I saw Kraftwerk that night, it would take me like 4 weeks to even go and buy the piece of their music. It took so long for the local record shop in Blackpool to get the single or the album. For all I know, in Blackpool now, it probably still takes 4 weeks to get that piece of music. But nowadays, you could just get your phone out, go onto Spotify. Instantly, you can find those pieces of music, which I totally love this idea. At that time, I want everything to go faster and faster. I don't want things to go slower. And I want technology to make things more accessible and faster. I don't want to be locked into Blackpool like I was then. I want the whole world in my pocket. And this is what an iPhone or a similar mobile phone can do. And this idea that you are now central to pop culture. Pop culture is available to everybody. Now, because of my age, I grew up in punk rock. And punk rock was probably the fulcrum, the turning point in kind of pop culture. It was a moment when pop culture went from something that aliens like David Bowie made and was beamed into your room by the current technology at the time, the black and white TV set, because nobody knew what a colour television at the time. And there's that punk rock was that point in time where you could actually make it yourself. It was primitive. It's like trying to describe, sometimes I have to go to colleges and talk about these times. It's like talk about the Victorian era or being like living in a cave or something. You know, like you bought guitars and you hit them with your hands and somehow you made a record and you distributed that record and a year later somebody actually might hear it. Now you can put it onto the internet. Now you can access music from all over the world really, really quickly. And I think that changes things, the way people make music. When I hear modern music now, modern music at its very best, it's like a fusion of like all different styles. You could take a little piece of Afghan hill music, a little piece of grime from London, a little piece of black metal from Norway and create a whole like fusion of styles, like a whole bricolage of music. That this idea that it's a way of going forward by recreating pieces of the past. And this is the way that technology kind of works in a sense. It makes everything like really, really instant, everything all at once. And it also places the music fan into the center of pop culture. Whereas at the time you were just a passive consumer, you were just going down to the record shop, ordering that record and hoping it would turn up 4 weeks later. with a sleeve intact. Now you can make your own music, you can list all this kind of music, and we have become the media. The media is not this kind of thing that's over there, far away in the distance, with these great tablets of wisdom handed down to us. We are the media. This is what happens now. This is what young bands are, their Facebook pages. This is what people become, for good or worse, because sometimes the banality of technology is absolutely stunning. A tidal wave of nothingness that just fills the world up, which like in maybe hundreds of years' time, when the aliens finally find us in our far-flung corner of the universe, they'll go, wow, all they ever did was take pictures of their breakfast and put them online forever and ever and ever. But this idea that our lives are as interesting as you know, these kind of pop aliens from the 1970s, I quite like that, the democratization of pop culture. Whereas your life is as interesting as Posh Spice's life. You know, this is a powerful message which we actually had in punk rock, that you are the center of your own little micro-universe, and we can actually do this now with technology. And I like this idea that you can make your own music in your pocket, whereas 40 years ago, if you wanted to make music, you'd have to go to school and bully people into being in a band with you. Now you just get out your mobile phone out of your pocket, and you just get onto GarageBand, and you can write a symphony orchestra piece. This is absolutely quite stunning. On my last album, we actually we have strings in about 4 tracks. I can't play a violin. Do I look like a kind of person who could play a violin? I could barely play a bass guitar. But on GarageBand, I could actually arrange whole string sections with that thumb, which is actually incredible. And we thought, well, what we'll do is we'll get a proper string section at some point, and they can play the parts. And then I thought, I can't tell the difference. It actually sounds like a string section, and we left it on there. Don't tell anybody. But all the string sections on the album are just done in the back of a van or an iPhone. They still sound good. It's just like a trick of the ear. And I really love this idea. But then there's the reaction of everything you get in pop culture is a reaction and a counter-reaction, and go back to this idea, the purity of vinyl. And I've always had this notion that one day, and I should have done it today actually, is put a screen up and have a record player here and an iPhone here and play the same piece of music and see if anybody can actually tell which one is vinyl and which one isn't. Because I don't think most people can. I think most people's ears are so battered from listening to everything so loud. I'd be very surprised if you could tell the difference. Of course, there's the aesthetic of vinyl and that thing about holding something, like holding onto a piece of cardboard with a beautiful picture on it, or holding onto the past. Has the vinyl now become like the grandfather clock? They're like an antique collection. And I think that's kind of interesting. Is something, a culture that was always about the future, that more and more is obsessing with the past. Like now, you could buy a magazine, and I'm guilty of it with the magazine I do as well, because the only way you can actually sell a magazine is do articles and things that people did 20 years ago in pop culture, when those things at the time were actually the future. So this blurring of the future and the past is also something that's very, very internet, very, very kind of part of the future that we're currently living in. The way that, like if you're 16 and you hear the Doors now, that's new, you know, and I like this. In a sense, this kind of leveling out of music, that what came out last week is as futuristic as something that came out 45 years ago. It's an interesting idea. It never happened when I was growing up. You know, it was always about Top of the Pops. Whoever's on Top of the Pops came out that week. It was brand new. That was the moment in pop culture. It was a snapshot of that time. The snapshot this time is like a digital mess. It's like a load of things coming all at once, this avalanche of ideas and bits and pieces, and you just chop them all up and make your own kind of little playlist to put on Spotify and onto your Facebook page. And I like those. I like this. I have no fear of the future. I think the future is a fascinating place. I just can't wait to get there. You know, just been waiting since that appearance by Kraftwerk in 1975 to get to the future. A future at the time was predicted that we'd all be living like in spaceships dressed in gold, like outfits or something. It didn't quite happen like that. But the internet kind of changed everything. The next great fulcrum in pop culture was the internet arrived. And for musicians, it made life very difficult because everyone can shuffle their feet nervously now, but nobody pays for music anymore. So now we have to go out and play live concerts and get on our knees and force people to buy CDs so we can get home again. This is not a future that we were looking for in 1975. It's an odd kind of future. It's like we've become corner shop owners. So in a way, we've kind of gone back to the past again. Instead of like flying around with jetpacks, going to gigs or something, we actually stand in the corner of the venue, these kind of weird, sweaty, middle-aged people trying to sell you a CD, a format of music which we can't stand because it looks so damn ugly. And when I'll give the vinyl people something, vinyl looks far better than a CD does. But they're both as useless to carry around. I mean, I live in a flat where the back room is just like chock full of vinyl and CDs. I look at it and go, there's so much stuff on there, I can't even bother to get it throw out. You know those kind of strange old men who live in houses full of newspapers, and the council have to come and dig them out when they're about 80. I have like a nightmare vision of that happening eventually. This is why I love the iPhone, because you can get the whole of that room and put it into your pocket. You could do everything into one little space, and which I like the compact nature of that. I like the feeling of the digital fast forward to the future. But I also like, was that a dog? How bizarre. I heard a dog barking. There, look. It's turned up. Yeah. So, actually, this beautiful drawing, which I did myself, because you're not allowed to have any images that are copyrighted, and I didn't seem to have it. And very typically of these modern times, everything I seem to own is owned by somebody else. So any piece of artwork you ever own has been made by somebody else, and because it's the internet, you kind of collect it and put it into your phone. Like every riff, every piece of music is kind of a bricolage, a recycling thing. Here at TEDx, you're not actually allowed to show anything that's copyrighted, which is good, because that's the law, and it's a law that should be respected. So I had to make my own piece of artwork, which you could tell, it's not Picasso, obviously, but this is... But what is slightly interesting about this is I actually did it on my iPad, and I thought this really, in a sense, kind of sort of sums up this kind of conversation, this idea that you can use the high tech to make primitive art.